Hello, everyone. Welcome to the All Season 365 podcast, sponsored by Dynasty Athletic Performance and powered by NC Football Connections. If you like any of our videos, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on X, and tell your friends about it. Our goal is to reach as many high school coaches as possible across the country. Today, we have a special guest. We have Coach Ronnie McClary. I'm athletic director, head football coach, and head track and field coach at Goldsboro High School in Goldsboro, North Carolina. Coach, how are you doing today?
Doing pretty good, man. How about yourself?
Man, I'm solid, man. Appreciate you for
Good, good.
hopping on.
Appreciate
You
you
being
having me.
in Goldsboro, right beside my hometown, Newton Grove. Anytime, we'll talk a little bit before we hopped on, before we start recording. We always cross paths, and for you to be holding stuff down back in East North Carolina, right beside my hometown, Newton Grove, man. You're doing a good job, I'm a proud supporter of what you got going on.
I appreciate it, man. It's an honor, especially to be back home. And like you said, near the big city of Newton Grove. It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure.
Absolutely, Coach. Well, before we get into athletic director talk, give our listeners a quick snapshot of your path into athletic administration.
Okay, so well, of course I graduated from Elizabeth City State University, go Vikings, and from there I actually started teaching here at Goldsboro High School. I did that for a couple of years, and then we had two male PE teachers. The principal wanted a female, so it was like the last hired. You'd hate to say first fired, but it's I got transferred. So I was transferred to Southern Wayne High School. I got there, and I was an assistant for a couple of years. And I would always want to help with the athletic director, just to get to know things athletically, because I saw myself going there one day, and then he stepped down for personal reasons. I became the head coach, and he and I still work together, work good together, whatever. And I was there for a number of years. I was teaching there for 11 years and the head coach for 5 or 6. And then this job came open, the head football coach job at Goldsboro. Applied for it, got it. Well, then after the first year, going into my second year back, the AD, she took another job. Well, that left me and Coach Kroon, my assistant AD, left us like, okay, so what's going on? So she kind of hinted to us about possibly leaving. So, and he didn't want to take it on. So I said, well, it is what it is. So I always had Coach David Lee at Southern Wayne. I always had him in my back pocket for advice and things like that. And we've been here for the past couple of years doing the AD thing, and with Coach Kroon as my assistant, other people helping out, doing those things. So I hadn't got fired yet. So I must be doing something right.
Well, I've always respected athletic directors, and some people might not even know this, but at a few of my stops, I've actually served as an assistant athletic director. I
Right.
had a chance to learn directly from Dexter Cooley, who, in the circles up here in Wake County, before he passed, from cancer, he was a huge deal in the athletic community. So I got
Absolutely.
a chance to shadow him, got a chance to learn a little bit more about what's going on, and always respected what athletic directors do, because there's a lot of stuff that has to happen that just don't get talked about. There's a lot of grunt work. There's a lot of organization. There's a lot of attention to details that's required to be a successful athletic director.
Absolutely.
And my goal is to help bring that attention to the forefront, man. So with that being said, let me ask you this: how do you set the tone for the athletic department as an athletic director?
Well, I like to think my approach would be the same as I do as my assistant coaches in football.
Mm,
First of all, I let them know, and I'm a type of guy. I'm just blunt, straight. That's how I was raised. I try not to be disrespectful, but I'm coming off. When we finish our conversation, you'll understand what I'm saying.
mm,
I try not to leave any gray. So my approach would be the same as a head coach. First of all, we're all adults,
yes.
and if I tell my football coaches, if I have to do your job, I don't need you. We'll
Mm,
just put somebody else in that can do your job. But at the same time, I'm here to serve, because without coaches, what would I do? Without bus drivers, without people who I can help, I wouldn't have a job. That's just like being in administration without teachers. A lot of people think just because they have this high title where they just sit on the throne and just watch everybody else work. No, we work together. And if anything else, I work for you. So setting the tone, letting them know this is your program. I'm here to assist you in any way I can, but we're going to do things the right way because there's a certain culture, a certain brand that we represent, and that standard will not come down. If anything, you got to come up to it. I'll help you get there. I'll do what I can on my end to help you in the program become successful. But at the same time, it's with the understanding that we're going to do everything abiding by the rules and regulations of not just the county and the state, but the school. Whatever we set as a program, because it's not about one person, it's not about me, it's not about the principal or the most famous coach, it's about the brand.
Yes.
Whatever we can do to promote the brand, even after these kids go in their lives or whatever, after these teachers retire, the brand will still be that. So my job is to push the brand and put coaches in position to be successful.
Yeah, absolutely. And I asked Coach Cooley years ago. I'm like, because he was the athletic director and basketball coach, and I asked him, I was like, man, why did you discontinue being a basketball coach? And he told me that it got to the point where early in his career he can manage both, but it got to the point where he was not able to serve his coaches the way he needed to, and that's why after so many years of coaching, he was just like, all right, man, let me lock in on being the athletic director. And it sounds to me like you got a very similar mindset where, hey, look, you're going to do what you need to do to help your coaches be successful, but they also have to help themselves in the process.
Absolutely. Because my thing is, that's just like with NFL, with having the owner and the GM. If the owner's got to do everything, what's the purpose of the GM? And people debate about, different ones and trying to do both roles or whatever. But at the end of the day, I don't want to have a stroke or a heart attack having to worry about adults. So I'm going to do my part in helping you, but at the same time, you do your part in doing your job, because as a head, whatever coach or an assistant coach, that's what you're here for. And as an athletic administrator, I'm just here to serve, here to help and assist any way I can. And with the same time, trying to focus on winning some football games too, or some track meets. So I'm going to put you in position, but let me have time to myself too, so I can get it done.
Absolutely. So let me ask you this: what is your vision for athletic activities at Goldsboro High School?
Well, my vision is to make the brand greater than what it is. I was telling somebody not too long ago, I'll never compare Goldsboro High School to Duke, Carolina, whatever, those bigger brands. I said, but at the same time, when you walk around other cities with Goldsboro High School on your shirt, somebody's going to stop you.
Yes.
And they're going to know somebody who went to Goldsboro. They know somebody who graduated from there, who played or whatever. And that's what we enjoy doing. When I walk into a mall in Raleigh, or when I go other places, a coach's clinic, and they stop Goldsboro, and they tell me about the 70s and 80s, I enjoy hearing that. My mom graduated, my dad graduated 81, and they'll tell me about, there was a lady who played basketball there. And the whole time I'm thinking, yeah, that was my mom, or that's my dad. So to push the brand and to make it, not just known in the state, but in the country, not just that, but at the same time, it's like, you in a fraternity or sorority, people, it can help you out. And it might be someone who graduated from Goldsboro High School. I can make a phone call and say, hey, I've got a kid. I need you to reach out to him. And because of that one connection of going to the same school, that they can get help doing that. And that has happened. So the vision I'd like to see pushed is being successful in everything. Winning, we love to win, but winning in life, winning in the classroom, winning as a parent, winning as a coworker, winning as doctor, lawyer, whatever the case might be, and to push the issue that I got my education from Goldsboro High School. I got my athletic ability from Goldsboro High School. And everything you do comes back to where you come from.
Very, very nicely stated. So let me ask you this: how do you define success in athletics? I mean, you played in the college ranks. In college, it's really more so about business.
Right.
Win or you lose your job. Not to say that that's not the case in high school, but more often than not, it's about developing the full athlete. How do you define success in athletics?
Well, when athletically, when we can send student athletes off to college and it's not a culture shock. It's not a culture shock when you have 5 assignments from 5 different classes due within 1 week. It's not a culture
Right.
shock when you go to college and you hear every name in the book and even made up words, but it doesn't get to you mentally. When you don't want to say, "Oh no, I got to
Mental
go home."
toughness.
Mental toughness. I got to go
Mm.
home because I don't know how to deal with this. I don't know how to deal with this coach, this strength and conditioning coach, this
Mm.
trainer who makes me come at 5 o'clock in the morning just to treatment, or I have to stay to study hall, even though I've got over a 2.5 or 3.0.
Mm.
But because I'm a freshman, I've got to stay here. I'm not. When we send guys and girls off to college, uh, they're not shook with that. Even if we send people out to the military or the workforce, based on what we did in high school athletics, helped prepare them and propel them to the point where other coaches will come back and say, "Hey, I don't know what you guys did with them, but we need another him. We need another
Mm.
her." Winning is great. Winning is great. But if you win and you don't have a good GPA, I tell my kids all the time, I can't sell stupid kids, and that's nothing disrespectful, but
That's the
lacking
truth.
intelligence and common sense is the
Yeah,
definition.
the
And when a
truth
coach comes to me and sees their GPA, the transcript, I can't do anything with that,
at
and they
all.
can't do anything with that. But if we can help marry those two together, and then when they come back in a year or two, and they're mentally prepared for what they're going through in life, because now it's nothing to get an A or B. When high school went to 10-point grading scale, not knocking it, but at the same
Yeah.
time, to have a 3.5 or 4.0 is more reachable than it was when you were in school. It was 7-point grading scale. So to push the academics, but at the same time to be mentally prepared for what life has for you, and if we can do that, we'll be successful.
And it's funny that you say that because I help with the recruiting at my school, and
Right.
one of the top 2 questions that they ask is, what is his home life like,
Mhm.
and what is his grades like, and
Absolutely.
if and they'll take a chance with the home life, but if the
Right.
grades ain't right, it doesn't matter how talented they are, we don't have any room to push them forward. So
Absolutely.
that's pretty
Right.
great for you to double down on the expectation, which is having them mentally ready to roll. Because, like you said, and we're gonna talk a little bit about Elizabeth City a little bit. But when you go to college and you have to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning and that coach is barking at you, and you're there to get stuff done. Oh, by the way, after practice, you still have to be a student. Um,
Absolutely.
the sooner you learn that, the better.
Absolutely.
Absolutely,
Absolutely.
man. So let's segue to administration, man. Love diving into this piece here because there's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes that people just don't know about. So briefly explain how you envision a typical day as an athletic director at Goldsboro.
Well, it's it depends on when the day starts. It might start the night before. If we had a game and something good or bad happened, I might get a text or a call, or early that morning, I might have to see the principal about something, or whatever the case might be, or dealing with issues of eligibility or whatever. A couple of weeks ago, um, well, about a month or so ago, coming back from the Christmas break, of course, going into the spring season starting off in February.
Mm,
That's a switch in transition in semesters. So now we're dealing with eligibility. A kid might have been eligible the first semester, but then going into the second semester, he or she might not be eligible. So dealing with those things. And then, of course, I teach weightlifting and health and PE. So dealing with those, but at the same time, having to make sure that, okay, well, today we had, let me see, we had tennis go out and we had golf match, right? So making sure that those buses are good to go. And not just that, but then you might need 4 buses later on this week because baseball, softball, soccer, and track all have an away match, so to make sure that everybody's on point, assign buses, assign these things, make sure everybody got a driver if the assistant coach can't drive, things like that. Not just that, but then looking at, okay, well, we got to check mileage. We got to make sure that kids are signed out when they leave with their parents, and those things. All the while, I'm turning in paperwork for a non-faculty coach who's working with the staff, but I got to make sure they get paid.
Yep.
Those things that you can be in a day from 7 to 7 and don't even think about it. It's almost 7 now, and I'm sitting here, and we had to be here at 8:00 because we start a little later. But it can be this time or later before I leave, but to make sure it gets done. Because at the end of the day, my motivation is for the kids and to make sure they're good. Not to mention, you might have someone who, like you said, the home life might not be as great. So getting them straight, making sure have they eaten? Do they have rides home? Can somebody come pick them up?
Mm-hmm.
How long do we have to stay with them until the ride gets here? But in the administrative aspect of it is making sure that the coaches make sure that the rides come, or making sure that their fields are cleaned up, or me peeping in at this practice or that practice, to making sure that things are on point. Because at the end of the day, I can't always bank on adults doing everything right. So I got to check behind them. And if they know somebody's looking behind them, they're going to do things right. And the same thing with the kids. If they know Coach McClary might come over and kind of peek in and, motivate them a little bit, then they know they'll tighten up. So the work doesn't stop. It just kind of pauses a little bit. It slows down, but it doesn't stop.
And those referees, man, you have to make sure they paid. Have to make sure they get those signatures, and make sure they have availability to change clothes, and if something comes up, you have to be able to pivot on the fly, man. So it sounds good.
What people don't realize is, speaking of officials, with us here in Wayne County, with Eastern North Carolina, it's probably the same as you guys. If we have to change something, but if the referees show up, you got to pay them for that game.
There you go.
And then let's just say we had a game that's postponed till tomorrow, but they showed up today. They get paid for a full game today, and then got to come back tomorrow and get paid for a full game. So we got to make sure we get in with the one who the assigner of the officials before we try to do it before lunch. If we know we might have to reschedule or whatever, hey, we might need to change this game, because in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, I don't want to pay them twice. They already get paid a lot. Well, pretty decent. I put it like that.
Decent, right?
They get paid pretty decent, and I'm not knocking officials, but I don't want to pay them just to show up. I want to pay them to work. And then, like you said, making sure you have officials, making sure they have been assigned and things like that. So it's quite a bit.
Yeah, man, and you touched on it, but in a nutshell, briefly explain how administrative work plays a role in the position as an athletic director. Like, what type of working knowledge would be beneficial for you to learn or know before you take on the role as an AD?
Well, I tell anybody, if you can get in good with the bookkeeper, with the data manager, the guidance counselors, custodians, you can learn quite a bit. And some people might say, well, why custodians? Well, I've got to order things. I've got to know in these locker rooms, I might need this, but in my female locker room, it's totally different. Whereas in the football locker room, it's going to look different than a female basketball locker room. So then how would if the custodians don't have enough, then how would I generate that? Because then, not just that, they're the ones that I look to clean it. So when it comes to MRSA, staph infection, things like that, I'm going to get with them to make sure we're on the same page. So then I'm going to get on my athletes, make sure everything is clean. So when they come in and spray, those things are taken care of. Financially, getting with the bookkeeper to know, okay, where the accounts are. How do I budget this account? How do I go about having a rotation with uniforms? How do I do that? Not just ordering from BSN and just, we got a lot of money, so I can just order.
That's expensive too.
Yeah, you might exactly. You might be sitting with $5,000 and this one athletic account, but by the time I buy 10 helmets. By the time I buy 10 helmets,
that money gone.
Half of that is gone, But then get with the bookkeeper to check on the data manager, checking on eligibility, things like that. And that can be tricky, like I said, especially going from first semester to second. Or, okay, well, what do I do about if a kid has college classes? Because now college classes don't show you a transcript until they're finished with that college class. So you don't want to mark somebody ineligible, but then they're finishing the college class and that's the class that would have went on the transcript. But if I get to know things like that, if I know about it's 13 and a half days or for whatever, for attendance purposes, or is it unexcused, is it excused? Do suspensions count? Do if I'm out for COVID, do those days go against me? Are they waived or whatever the case might be? So getting to know those different people, those different aspects truly helps in administrative roles.
Nicely stated, man. And earlier on, you were talking a little bit about promotions, and want to revisit that briefly. I know that you're pretty active on X, on social media. You do a good job of sharing the joys of what's going on at your school. Briefly explain your strategies for promoting athletic events and activities at your school.
Well, there again, it goes to using people. If I know that a coach is good at making flyers or whatever, or kids for that matter, a lot of people don't use their kids enough. Kids have more followers than we do, So if I say, hey, I'll tell my son, look, put this in your group chat, tell everybody to share it or whatever, then that takes care of the kids. Yeah. And, with the old folks, or so to speak, you put that on Facebook, so and then tag a bunch of people or highlight, then you got everything covered. But we try to push all issues, whether it be sports or academics, and try to tie them in together, so people will just know it's not just about athletics, but we have some smart kids too, or if RTC does something, or if the math club or whatever the case might be, we just try to push all of those issues, because again, it's about the brand. And if we can do whatever we can to push the brand, we feel like it'll make the school as a whole look better.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And our AD, man, Coach Embry, he does a good job of making our athletic department visible. And because, again, just noticing the difference, since he have taken over, the visibility of all athletics is definitely out there. So, again, I follow track and I run the track and the football accounts, right? Will help with that. But he's making the big picture look good. So now I know what's going on with baseball, know what's going on with softball, know what's going on with basketball, right? And the school is getting behind it. So branding as an athletic department is huge, because what that does is it brings indirect recruiting. I mean, you have families that are on social media, they're looking for a place to go, and they see, oh man, I see Goldsboro, man, they got this going on. Oh, this going on. It's easier to follow, and this brings a lot more joy to the overall athletic experience.
Absolutely. Well, we won't say recruiting, but I mean, magnet schools can do that, but I don't want to say that, because people are swear, but now we try to recruit kids. But at the same time, like you said, it makes the school look good. And when trying to decide where I want my child's future to be, that can have a positive or negative impact on those parents. And what we try to do is push those issues and have those tough conversations about, okay, well, how many fights have you had this year? How many people have been suspended for vaping? How many people have been, or how many freshmen out of the freshmen that made principal list, how many of those are athletes? Out of the National Honor Society members, how many of those kids play sports? So pushing those issues so people can see, oh, wait a minute, it's not, because schools like this get a bad rap, or like Hopton, they might say, well, that's country school, that's this, that, and the other, X, Y, Z, not knowing that the top 5 kids in the class are athletes, not knowing that those 5 have over a 4.0. So things like that, in pushing that, they can kind of see, oh, wow, I didn't know that about this school. I didn't know that about that school. Well, that's why we're pushing the issue, because people aren't going to advertise that. So somebody's got to put the brand. So what better person to push it than the ones that are in it? Because people with the preconceived notions, they'll have those. And I tell people all the time, perception is reality.
It is.
And until you change their perception of you, the reality is going to be the same. If I feel like Coach Simmons is, this guy's crazy, this guy's not smart at all, this, that, and the other, well, until you prove me otherwise, I'm going to keep thinking the same thing. And then when you prove me different, oh, well, he's not as bad as I thought he was. So when you prove that to people, and, people say all the time, I don't care about what people think. Well, we do. We do. And as an athletic administrator, that's one of my jobs, to make sure that what you think about us is on a positive note.
Absolutely, man. And the media, not throwing any salt on anybody, but the media, hey, when it comes to the controversy, right? They're quick to jump on that because they're
Absolutely.
thinking about clicks and branding, etc. But
Hmm.
anytime that your school get a chance to share the good stuff, you encourage the kids because sometimes the kids just forget, right? They got all this stuff going on, but hey,
Absolutely.
remind them like, hey, man, like you're on the principal list, post that, right?
Absolutely.
Tag your
Absolutely.
school, so the more vibes you get, the better, man.
Absolutely.
So good
Absolutely.
point there. So let me ask you this, man. What brings you the most joy as an athletic director?
Well, to see when I look and see things that we put out there uh, coming to fruition. So, like when we
Mm,
see, like you said, not just the money makers. Here, everybody knows that if it wasn't for basketball and football, the county doesn't give us a budget, athletic budget,
right,
right? So,
right.
without ticket sales and
Mm,
without fundraisers, we'd be shook. We wouldn't have athletics. So,
mm,
outside of those, what are we doing with wrestling? What are we
mm,
doing with swimming? Some people didn't
mm.
even know we had a swimming team. But to see those kids make it to regionals, get
Wow.
personal bests, to see the cheerleaders do well, to see them start a stunt club and go into get third place at certain things, to see us have a state championship wrestler, the first one in many years.
Wow.
Those what people call non-revenue sports.
Non-proven sport.
To see cross country make it to the state meet. Now once they got there, hey, it was a big culture shock to them because this is the first time in I don't know how long that Goldsboro High School cross country team made it to a state meet. But to see those successes uh, on the field of play, to me, it's going to be understood that it's going to be successful in the classroom because we don't expect anything different. But we don't know what the outcome is going to be on the field of play. That's one thing that we have to hope and work for outside of the classroom. But to see all those things come together, and this kid's got a 4.0, and this kid's a state champ, and he's got a 4.0, or this kid they made it to this round of the playoffs, and none of them got suspended.
Mm,
As an athletic administrator, to go to other places and see them flourishing and doing well, but then to know that you can come to Goldsboro High School, you'll be safe, you'll have a good time. It's a vibe. It's a vibe. I was telling someone at a playoff basketball game,
mm.
it almost felt like winter homecoming in college.
Oh wow. Nice.
And to have that vibe is that you kind of pause and look around, and then you see things like we just celebrated the 45th anniversary of the 1982 women's basketball team. So to see them come together with the 2025 women's basketball team and fellowship and get together like that those things like that you can't put it in a bottle. Like you've got to live through it,
Mm.
and to see that is amazing. So as an athletic administrator, to see to tie generations together on the field, off the field, things like that, and to know that while we're doing it, we've got some smart ones too. We
Yes.
have some athletics, some good athletes as well. So to see that as an athletic administrator is amazing.
Yeah, that's huge, man. And I mean, for example, we have a guy, Keeson. He's being recruited by nearly all the colleges in the country. But what people don't know is that he is a honors student. He has a 4.2 plus GPA,
Right.
and he won the extra effort award. And his teachers spoke highly of him. And to be able to share that part of the athlete, hey, listen, he's a talented player, like like the kids at your school, very talented athletes. However, if you get a chance to get them in a class, you'll see, hey, yeah, these students are going to be future leaders beyond their athletic ability,
Absolutely.
and the presence of a social media will help push that narrative forward for many years to come.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Ye-
And to see, a lot of college coaches understand that if they take the chance on a high school athlete, they're
yes,
going to make them bigger, faster, stronger.
yes,
But their thing is, I can't make this kid be respectful. I can push that issue. I can try to motivate them. I can't make them say yes sir, no sir. I can't
yes.
make them go to class when they've got to work out at 5:30 in the morning, got an 8 o'clock class.
Mm,
I can try to motivate them, but when you get those two together, and like you said, yeah, he could be a great athlete and get recruited from every school in the country. But what does his teacher say about him? What does his custodian say about him? What about the assistant principal? Or what about the person that nobody hardly knows in the school that he might have a conversation with? What does he or she say about him? And if they can attest to that person being an awesome person, then you can't help but to win.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Before I let you go, man, got to talk about the elephant in the room, Coach James. My story with Coach James, and I know that he's a Goldsboro legend as well.
Absolutely.
He also did very good things at Elizabeth City State University. I'll never forget about him, because without him, me and my brother wouldn't have had the opportunity to play college ball. Long story less long, it was as simple as he saw us out and about. And he was like, "Hey, man, you guys are still unsigned?" We said, "We still unsigned." He said, "All right, let's meet at the Hardee's." So I never forget, man. We met at the Hardee's in Newton Grove. My mother and my sisters, still there, right? We sat there, we talked. He bought our meals, and he said, "What's up, man? You gonna sign?" So we signed right on the spot, man. But I say to say this, man. Over the years, he's no longer with us. But over the years, I still kept in contact with him. He was still supportive, all the time. Coach James, man, how did he impact you as a student athlete, but most importantly as a man?
Well, I never compare anybody. My father passed away November 11th of this past year, and I'll never compare anybody to my dad. That's just who he was. But if I had to run a close second, he would be one of those guys in my life. He came along. He and my parents knew each other for years. My mom and dad coached his daughter in high school. I actually did my student teaching when his son was in high school, so
nice.
I interacted with him in weightlifting classes and things like that. So as a young man, he saw me come up in the ranks of high school football. And one thing I can say, he was the same way.
Yes.
He was one of the more consistent people you'll meet. Now, whether it's positive or negative to some people, it is what it is, but he was one of the most consistent people. If you saw him in Walmart, if you saw him at Bojangles, wherever you saw him, he was that type of person. But he wanted the best out of everybody, and he knew how to get it. He knew how to get it, especially with his linemen. He knew how to get it. So, he was here my 9th grade year, and then he went to Elizabeth City, came back my 12th grade year. And we went to the game before the state championship game. We lost in the 4th round of the playoffs. And then he and I both went to Elizabeth City, where he was my offensive line coach. So and he had to push the issue of he was going to be harder on me than anybody, because he didn't want people to think he was showing me favoritism because we were from the same area. But he didn't have to do it as hard as he did. In hindsight, I knew what it was. I kind of felt like it was. But he pushed that issue, but he made me a better man. And some of those stories that he would tell you, it wasn't just about football. It was about life. He helped you with life. Not just that, but then even as he got sick, he was on the Hall of Fame committee. And he was the one who put me up before the board when it came to the Hall of Fame committee. And what touched me even more so was I taught his son, Gerard, after he passed away, and he hadn't sent the letter in to the committee. But when Gerard pulled up his computer, that was the first thing that popped up, was the letter that he was finishing. So to know that he was still thinking about that, even in his last few days, was touching. I never forget that man, and I owe him so much. And he's one of the reasons I became a coach. That guy's awesome, and that the big guy is
that's what he would say. He would say, "The big guy, man. Hey, what's up, big guy? How you doing?"
Absolutely.
Yeah, man. And I mean, obviously, he gave us an opportunity, but most importantly, I'll never forget, I saw him at the coaching convention in Greensboro, and he was surprised. He was like, "You a coach?" And then he was like, okay, I get it now, man.
Yeah.
But I just never forget that, through my experience, through my interaction with him, he was, "Hey, man, listen, if you get a chance to go to lead, take care of it. However, don't forget about these books. Don't forget about these books. Don't forget about these books, man." So as a coach, very similar to you as a coach, every day we talking athletic ability, but most importantly, academics, because you need a plan once your playing days are over. and thank God that he made a positive impact, and I'll never forget him because of that, man. So
Absolutely.
very good story, man. So before I let you go, love asking this question. What
Yes, sir.
advice would you give anyone looking to take the next step as an athletic director?
Well, I would say, first of all, be all in. Of course, we all have lives. People, there's some are married with children, family members taking care of their parents or children, whatever. But the same effort that you have when it comes to being that parent, being that son, that daughter, whatever the case might be, have the same energy, because at the end of the day, it's about servicing people. It's
Yes.
about servicing children, servicing other adults. How do I make the lives of these coaches and these athletes better? Not just that, how do I understand that, put myself in a position, put my administration in a position
Mm,
where they don't have to do anything when it comes to athletics. They just kind of, well, I know he's got it, she's got it. So to be all in, but at the same time, take care of yourself, because it can be so strenuous and so tedious that you can look up and you haven't eaten all day.
mm,
You can also look up and you hadn't worked out in 2 weeks.
mm,
You haven't drank any water all day.
mm, mm,
You have migraines coming from anywhere and
mm,
everywhere. But to take care of self, but to be all in, and not just when it comes to the academic portion, but the athletic portion, also in the person that you're servicing. Get
mm,
relationships with everybody. The relationship I have with my football coaches are different than the ones I have with my baseball and softball coaches, but at the same time, they can call me up and have a conversation as well. It's a little bit different, but it's just like having two or three different children. The relationship I have with my quarterback will be different than what I have with my starting DB. But
mm,
at the same time, I still have that relationship. And having those relationships, I think teaching and coaching and athletic administration is all about relationships. If I can have those relationships with the coaches, the athletes, and the parents, because now somebody has to trust you. With it, I'm going to spend more time with some children than the parents do. So just knowing that, and knowing that they're holding you accountable. But if I hold myself more accountable than the parents do, then I'll be okay. But keeping that same energy across the board and having a standard and not coming down. And the standard is the standard. And if you keep it
mm.
like that, I think you'll be all
Standard,
right.
standard. And more often than not, man, what I found out in this teaching and this coaching sounds similar to you is when you hold people to a high standard, they're gonna fight and claw to reach that standard every time.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That-
My mom had a saying, and she still says it every now and then: get right or get left. You either get right, and we said at track, if you get right, if you don't get right, you're going to get left in the dust, because everybody's going to be in front of you. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh man, well man, wise words, man. Well, thank you for listening to the Offseason 365 podcast. I'm Coach Simmons with Coach McClary. We're signing off.